Hello and welcome to the Gamepodular Unfocused podcast. I am, as always, your host, SCHiM Spider, and with me today we have Hyoka.
As always, you are the host. That's definitely how it has historically gone. Hi, I'm doing great.
And Scott.
Well, hello there. There's a little bit of a change up.
Yeah, how does it feel to be in the backseat of the van?
Yeah, sometimes, because I'm always the one driving. I hardly drive with anyone, and so, yeah, being in the back seat, sometimes kind of nice.
Lots of legroom back here. You don't have to deal with pedals.
Exactly. Yeah, how are you two doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. It's a bit heated at the moment. Still a little bit cool here. Getting a little bit warmer. That's what it's like up in Queensland. Definitely still cold when I go to work. That's still annoying. I would like that to stop, but then I'll be regretting it when it comes into the heat in the summertime.
Yeah.
But I'm generally good.
All right. How about you, Hyoka?
Great. I'm having a great time. Life is good. I've been going to the movie theater a lot recently. I say a lot. I went last week and I'm going again at time of recording in 2 days. The local, more art housey kind of theater is doing a special run of 4K restorations of Kurosawa movies. So I've seen Yojimbo, and I'm going to go see Seven Samurai.
Hell yeah. Both of those are really good. I mean, it's Kurosawa, so as a rule of thumb, most anything he's done is good. But those two are rightfully among his best.
Yeah.
And yeah, other than that, I've been playing a lot of very good video games, and I talked about one of them on the most recent episode of N-Focus, and I'll continue talking about it a little bit here. There is an ape-themed game that we've all been super into.
Ooh. Wait, did they finally make Ape Escape 3?
Oh, Sony. Come on.
Do it, you cowards.
Yes.
The people have simians on the brain.
Yes.
I mean, not to reuse a joke from my own Blue Sky page, but in a way, you are an ape trying to escape from the planet's core.
The planet core.
Ha-sha-sha.
Sha-sha.
How about you, SCHiM? How's stuff?
I've been good. I have a sore back at time of recording because I spent 6 hours yesterday bending over a table sleeving up trading cards before selling them off. So that's a way to spend your weekend.
Yeah.
Other than that, been good, busy, but definitely very good. Playing a lot of games, some good, some I wanted to be good and they weren't, but we're not talking about those today. That might be next episode. And yeah, looking forward to getting around to playing some of the things I got for my birthday, because I got a lot of really cool games for my birthday, and I've only gotten to play some of them so far. So that'll probably be next on the docket. But
nice.
Before we get going on today's episode, I would like to remind everybody that if you enjoy this podcast and everything we do, please do support us over at patreon.com/gamepodular. For less than the cost of a dog brush a month, you too can support us. Please do.
We really appreciate it. It's like I always say, it's kind of tough out there. So anything that you feel like giving, that is the important, not can, but feel like, we would sincerely appreciate.
Absolutely, yes. We also have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/gamepodular. Sorry, @ @gamepodular.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't know why it has to be there.
No.
It's not a social media platform, but here we are. That has VODs of all of our podcasts, We are also on Twitch, twitch.tv/Gamepodular, where we do streams. And we also have a second YouTube channel in case you missed any of those streams. That is at youtube.com/@Gamepodular streams highlights. Or as some of us will call it to our dying day, at Gamepodular. But, you know, we may or may not have been outvoted on that.
Look, we decided that we also wanted to do stream highlight compilations on there, which we have been doing. We did 2 of them. One for Earth Defense Force and one for Donkey Kong Bananza. And we're planning on doing more. But yeah, if you want to check out the Twitch as well, Scott and I are currently making our way through the multiplayer in Portal 2, and it's been a real hoot.
And a bit of a holla.
A hoot and a holla and a ballyhoo, dare I say.
And a Padme Amidala.
And and there may be promise of cake.
So delicious and moist.
Yeah, let's get into what we actually played. Myself, the thing that I've probably been playing, like, it's a game I come back. There's a game I keep coming back to every once in a while. It's called the Shrouded Isle. If you're not familiar, it's a roguelike city management. City management is probably too strong a word for it. Community management game? You run a death cult. Sorry, I should back up. You run a apocalyptic Lovecraftian death cult awaiting the return of the great dark god Chernobog. It's been 495 years since the prophecy, and you are in charge of keeping the village going for the last 5 years and making sure that you don't trip up at the finish line. And when I say you're managing the village or managing the people, mostly that means you need to make it through seasons. Like, it, you know, you're playing through 5 years, 4 seasons per year, so there's essentially, 20 sessions you have to make it through, and each session you have to end it by sacrificing one of your villagers.
Just classic cult behavior.
Absolutely, classic cult behavior. Thing is, Chernobog is picky. Chernobog has requests. Chernobog is like, he's like a restaurant critic going up to the garçon and being like, I would like the charlatan today. Bring me a charlatan, if you would. So you have to go find which one of your villagers is like a lying, duplicitous weasel. And that can be tricky because people are not actually very forthcoming. Like, that's the downside of running a cult like this. People obey you exactly as much as they need to, and that's about it. Otherwise, they are very scared of you and very withdrawn. So actually finding the people you're supposed to sacrifice can be a bit of a challenge. And also, there are not resources exactly, but there are metrics that you need to keep track of. Like, you need your village to be a certain amount of obedient, obviously, but you also need them to have a certain amount of religious fervor, and you need them to feel penitence and shame for everything they've done. And you need them to stay ignorant. You don't want them learning about the wider world. That's not how cults work, at least not the successful ones.
Yeah.
So it's a game where you have to try and figure out who to sacrifice, whilst making sure none of these stats get out of hand. And also without actually inciting a revolt from the villagers. Because there are great families that are sort of each in charge of one of those stats. Like, your fervor is always handled by the same family, the Gnetskis, I believe it is. And if you sacrifice members of the same family 2 seasons in a row, they're going to be outraged about that. And you might well find yourself having to do that, because if you make it to the end of a season without having figured out who you're supposed to sacrifice, you still need to sacrifice somebody. Like, you can't tell the great god Chernobog, oh, will next Tuesday do? No, that doesn't work. Somebody's going to go up on that altar and is not coming back down again.
Yeah.
And that's going to annoy the family.
They can't call in a sick day or...
No. I wish that was an option, but no. Actually, we'll get to sickness in a moment because that is actually a mechanic. But yeah, the families will get very annoyed if you sacrifice somebody that isn't who the Great God Chernobog requested. Like, they don't enjoy sacrificing members regardless, but if it's specifically what, Chernobog asked, then okay, fair enough. I guess that is the whole point of the cult.
Yeah.
But if you can't prove that, no, this is right and this is what he asked for, they're going to be very annoyed. And if you do, like I said, 2 in a row, they're going to be really annoyed. One other way in which they get really annoyed is if you sacrifice somebody who is afflicted with something, because you can't worship eldritch beings without people getting a little funny in the head. So sometimes people will get, like I said, the game calls them afflictions, and those are things that when they happen to someone, it's like they're possessed for a while or to get sick, and you need to examine them in order to find out what's wrong, and then you need to cure them, because if you sacrifice somebody who isn't cured, even if you know for a fact that they are the person Chernobog wants, the family will be outraged because they think you're just getting rid of somebody who is sick rather than treating them, which is honestly kind of relatable in a way, even if the treatment is... We are still a death cult, so the treatment for somebody who is known to have an affliction is put them in a cage and then dunk the cage in water for the entire season.
They're just going to come out as a large raisin.
Even if that season is winter.
Yeah. So I had a question about this. I've seen you stream this on Discord a while back, and I can't remember. Do you get if you are in a position where you have to sacrifice somebody but you don't know who fits the criteria, do you get confirmation after the sacrifice whether or not you sacrifice the right person? Does Chernobog go yes, this is exactly what I was looking for, thank you?
You do, because if you don't get the right person, then the request doesn't change. But if you do get the right person, then the request will change to somebody new. So if, he wants a charlatan, and you're not sure, but you get lucky, and turns out, yeah, that's the charlatan, then he will request for the next season, all right, now bring me the artist. Artists being a problem, because having an artist in the village will lower the ignorance by exposing people to independent thought. It's all very, this is a dark game with dark tone, to be entirely clear. I don't think it's gleeful about it. I don't think it's distasteful about it, but it does not shy away from the premise of, hey, apocalyptic death cults are not good for you and are not a healthy environment to grow up in.
Yeah. So, but does the family still get mad even if if you guessed right, essentially?
If you guessed right but you couldn't prove it, then yes, they do get mad.
Oh.
Because it shakes their trust in you. It's like, okay, I guess that was right, but you didn't know that. Now, did you? Why are we listening to you, Mr. I'm supposed to know it all, but I don't?
Yeah. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. There's also sort of seasonal events, not every season, but usually but most seasons, I'd say, every other season, there is a little event that comes up of sir, a whole bunch of dead fish have washed up on the shore. What should we do with them? And you have the choice of either throwing them back into the sea or eating them or what have you. And that will affect the village somehow, some way. It could make families like you more or like you less. It can raise stats. It can lower stats. It can sometimes have longer term consequences that play out over the course of a couple seasons. I like the depth that this game has nowadays, because nowadays every version you can get of this game includes the Sunken Sins DLC sort of bundled in, and that added a whole bunch of extra features. So I mentioned that, like, you can dunk people in cold water for an entire season to cure them of their afflictions. The thing about that mechanic is you can also dunk people who don't have afflictions. Because if you do, there's a chance that they will awaken or ascend and become a tentacle-faced eldritch abomination that can affect the village in really interesting ways. See, also, sometimes people like it in the tower, and they don't want to leave the cage anymore.
Again, classic cult behavior.
It is classic cult behavior, but the problem is we only have so many cages. Like,
Yeah.
I got sick people that I need to cure, and frigging Bethany over here is refusing to get out, and the only thing you can really do there is dunk her on purpose and hope she gets the point, and then either she awakens, or sometimes people just die. Like, you can absolutely have villagers die without even sacrificing them, and in fact, it is possible to kill literally every villager in your village. There is even an achievement for it. You can wipe out entire families as well, and that does not actually end the game. Like, if you kill literally everybody in the village, yes, that will end the game. But if you wipe out, like, all of the Gneskis, so you literally don't have anybody to do fervor for you anymore, that doesn't end the game. If you are able to finagle sort of like secondary bonuses to fervor and whatnot long enough that you can reach just the end of the final year, that will still get you a real ending. And there are a bunch of different endings in this game. But the main thing I really need to shout out and address here, and I haven't really talked about yet, is the art style. I adore the art style in this game.
So grimy.
So much. It's very grimy, it's very high contrast, it's very striking. Like, there's not a lot of games out there that actually look like this, and I adore it so much. The music also complements it very well. I believe, hold on, I have this written down in my notes. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, art direction by Erika Lahaye and music by François-Xavier Bilodeau. Shout out to the both of them. Absolutely incredible aesthetics start to finish. I don't think this game would work if it didn't nail that tone as well as it does, because it is a very bleak, dour sort of tone. It's not 100% clear exactly what time frame the game is set in, but it's sort of implied to be like the 19th century thereabouts. And it just has this, like, strikingly miserable vibe to it.
Oh, sorry, I'm just having a look at some screenshots here. It's got a very pea soup original Game Boy color scheme vibe going on. From what I can see.
Ooh, yeah.
One aesthetic decision I really like is you never see anybody's eyes. Like, there's portraits for every single villager. Nobody has visible eyes. It's all either, like, shrouded or covered by a hat or something. And it really dehumanizes everyone. Which is good. That's thematically appropriate. You are, like, you can't go around sacrificing people without thinking of them as not people anymore. And in that sense, I do think that, like, this is a game with a little bit of a message to it. I don't know that, like, you know, this came from a personal place or anything like that. I don't know that this was written by people who grew up in this kind of environment, but I do think they went about designing it in a very clever way where the gameplay incentivizes you to stop thinking of them as people and start thinking of them as resources, and realizing that and kind of getting scared by yourself just a little bit.
Yeah.
The thing is, sometimes it does actually really hurt to sacrifice somebody, because when I say you have to sacrifice somebody at the end of the season, you don't get to pick from the entire village. You get to pick from your seasonal, like, council. Every season, you have to pick one member of each family to serve on the council, and that's and then at the end of the season, you have to sacrifice somebody from the council. And usually, that means you have to sacrifice somebody. Like, if you're on top of your game and you know who to sacrifice, you're sacrificing the people that Chernobog asks for. That means every season, one of these people is terrible at their jobs. So you don't mind getting rid of them, but it does mean that one job is pretty hard to do that season. What really hurts is every character, even the ones who are very good, has some kind of vice, some kind of minor drawback. And sometimes people are good enough that, numerically they still come out ahead, and those are like your anchors, your rocks, the ones that you can really rely on. And it hurts so bad when Chernobog wants them. You're just like, no! Like, Alicia only has a very minor vice. Why do we have to get rid of her? She's like the thing propping up my entire economy. And you can disobey Chernobog, but people are not happy about it. But that's just something in general that I like. There's very, very, very few things in this game that are actually like a hard game over. You can absolutely play within the space that it gives you. Like, if you want to, piss off a family so bad that they're in threat of revolting, normally that means you have to placate them. But on more than one occasion, what's happened is, okay, this family is really, really up in arms. They're about to overthrow me. Wait, how many people are left in a family? Oh, one, and they're the one on the council. I can just sacrifice them. And then it's not a problem, because there's nobody left to revolt. So, it's very freeform in that way.
That kind of thing is also playing very much back into the theme of seeing them as resources and not as people. And I think that's a very clever bit of game design by, forcing you to sort of adopt that mindset.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't say this is a hard game exactly, but it does sort of take like a run or two to get a feel for how to play efficiently. But it's just something I come back to pretty regularly. Like, I've owned this game for a couple years now, and I've put like a single run throughout the entire 5 years does not take very long. It's like, if you actually survive it all the way to the end, that's like, between an hour and 90 minutes. I've put like 35 hours into this game at this point, because it's a very low energy thing to come back to, but it still makes you think just a little bit, and the aesthetics are really striking, but also weirdly soothing. Like, it's a low energy game, even if it's dealing with dark imagery and dark themes. So it's weirdly soothing despite how messed up it is.
Yeah, I would call it thematically stressful, but not mechanically stressful.
That's a good way of putting it, yeah. And I hope these devs do more, but the devs have been a little bit tricky to research, because this was not developed by a studio, as in literally they never came up with a name for a studio. It was just 4 people. I mentioned 2 of them already, the art director and the composer, Erika Lahai, Francis-Xavier Bilodeau. Then there's also Jung-Woo Kim, who did like programming and design, and Tanya Short, who did the writing. And that's it. And to the best of my knowledge, those people have not like gotten back together to make another project again. So I hope they're doing well, but this seems to have been a weird one-off. I was sort of wondering, like, was this like a jam game that they expanded? But insofar as I can tell, that's not the case.
In case you're curious, because I was looking this up on Moby Games, the IMDb of video games, Jung-Woo Kim went on to be creative director on Lucifer Within Us in 2020. Erica June L., the art director, worked on... Hang on, the page is loading. Off the top of my head, did some work on Chicory. and
I
Tunic
can see that,
as well.
yeah. That makes sense, because I think both of those are also published by Kit Fox Games.
That's correct. And the composer and audio designer, François-Xavier Bilodeau, also did audio direction on Lucifer Within Us, and also was one of the audio designers on Assassin's Creed Origins.
All going back to Assassin's Creed.
I will mention it every episode, so help me God.
One of these days, we're going to make it to like the thanks for listening, everybody. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, time for the Patreon, and Hugo will still find a way to work it in somehow.
I'm going to like hack into Scott's computer and just add like a little Requiescat in Pace clip at the end of the episode, just in case.
Just to be safe, yeah. But yeah, if anything I've said about the Shrouded Isle sounds interesting to you, it's on Steam, it's on itch, PC and Mac. It's also on Switch, because, if it's on Steam, it's a safe bet at this point that it's also on Switch. Like, this, at least in terms of the games that I play, I've very much noticed that trend. But yeah, it's weirdly chill, but also really compelling. I've never really played a whole lot else like it. And if nothing else, like, the art and music alone are frankly already worth it. Absolute bangers start to finish. But yeah, Hyuka, what have you been playing? Statistically, probably Assassin's Creed.
Unfortunately, not this time. The first thing I wanted to talk about on this episode is actually not something I've been playing. It is based on something I played that we covered back on, I want to say, episode 19, which is a Dutch game called SCHiM. To catch people up about it, it's the game where you're a little shadow creature and you're jumping between shadows to try and catch up to the young man whose shadow you live in. And I talked about it in episode 19, and I was reasonably positive. It wasn't like, it's hardly an all-timer, but it was pretty good. I definitely enjoyed my time with it. But recently, there is a big building in the city of Groningen that has sort of like a media exhibition space. And part of that exhibition space was devoted to the sort of history and design of the game SCHiM. And so I went there over the course of the last weekend. I went there last weekend, and I just wanted to bring back some cool little facts that I found about it. Shouldn't take very long, but I thought it was very interesting.
Take it away.
It was a pretty small exhibit because it was like part of their larger one on like animation and comics and video games in general. Like, there's a section devoted to like, there's a bit from Guerrilla Games, and there's a bit from Flambeer and stuff like that. And they have like original like Disney animation cells and old like Tintin comic books and stuff. It's great. Highly recommend. But here are some interesting facts about SCHiM that I learned about the exhibit. The visual style is one of the most striking parts about it because it has a very limited color palette. And the main reason for that is that the lead designer on it, Ewout van der Werf, is colorblind. And he wanted to create a color palette that was easy for everyone to be able to see. He was also inspired by previously mentioned Tintin comic books. He wanted that sort of like thick, outlined drawing art style in the game. One of the things
Some of that influence.
Exactly. One of the things that a lot of people remarked on, and I remarked on as well, is that it's visually just very Dutch. You know, you go to like a train station, and the trains, they look like the trains here in the Netherlands. Or like the little announcement boards about what platform you're on and what the next train is going to be. Those are just straight out of Dutch train stations here. And that was apparently not the original plan. They were sort of like just making some prototypes. And one of the prototypes for a level that Ewout made was just based on his neighborhood in the Netherlands. And he and his co-designer Niels Slackerman liked it so much that they just decided to go for it. Keep it that way. They managed to take the game to a bunch of different trade shows, Tokyo Game Show, London Games Festival, Bit Summit, Indigo. They've won a couple of awards. They won the 2023 Bit Summit Visual Excellence Award, the 2022 Tokyo Game Show Sense of Wonder Night Audience Award Grand Prix, and the Best Game Design Award. For those who are curious,
but I'm here for
yeah,
it.
Boy, there's so many capital letters in that sentence. There's, in fact, only one word in there that is not two words in there that are not capitalized. For those who are curious, the Tokyo Game Show Sense of Wonder Night is basically their indie games night.
Gotcha.
And they also won the Indigo Award in 2022, which is one of the major Dutch gaming awards. Previously hosted by Dutch Game Garden, which unfortunately no longer exists because of new funding rules from our famously terrific government. But it has been taken over by a larger Benelux, which is Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg Gaming and Association that I can't immediately remember the name of.
Mm-hmm.
And they won just the straight up Indigo Award in 2022. And the cool thing was, as part of this exhibit, all of those awards were just visible. Like, I took pictures. They were in a glass case, obviously, but you could just see them. I like that a lot. And
very nice.
And going to all of these different trade shows gave them insight into like how different types of players from different places approached the game. Like, Japanese players would generally go like, they would investigate as much of the level as possible, try to see as much as they could before going to the end goal. European players, on the other hand, like me, if you remember episode 19, I said that there is a collectible in each level and I didn't get most of them. And that lines up with their observation that European players were generally very goal-oriented. British players at the London Games Festival this was a fun one to hear, is in some of the levels, there's like a park. You're in a park. And in those parks, there's ponds, which is a very normal thing to have here in the Netherlands. But they're not very common in the UK. And so British players just would avoid going in the water at all costs, because that's just such a foreign thing to them. And they would just try to find every route possible to go around the pond, because they just didn't realize that you could just go in the water. You can just do that.
I'm not going in the water. Fish make love in there.
And
among other things.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing was, I really, as I previously mentioned, pointed out that I really love the Dutchness in this game. And it is very fun to hear that most Dutch people who played the game didn't actually, like, remark on it at all. They didn't really notice it because it's very normal for us. But
yeah, it doesn't read as extraordinary.
Yeah, exactly. But everywhere else they took the game to demo it, they were like, "Oh, I love the architecture. It's so very Dutch. You know, it's so interesting and unique. You don't see that very often." And I guess that really shows off that I'm like not a normal Dutch person.
For one thing, you hang out with me.
Yeah, and I speak English like an American. Canadian. Let's be precise here. I speak English like a Canadian at this point.
You're at least 30% Canadian by osmosis, yes.
Yeah. I was going to do a Canadian
like a really
reference.
Cool
I was going to do a Canadian reference there, but I can't really make one without swearing. Going out for a rip, are ya, bud? Love that song. It's so funny.
Oh, yeah, bud, for sure, eh? Head on to the LCO later, pick up a couple of White Claws.
But yeah, that's basically it. It was just a neat little, like, 1.5-ish room. Ooh, and one more thing. They had a couple of TVs set up where you could play a special level created for the exhibit, where you would go like in the surrounding area of the building that this exhibit is being hosted in. It was very cool. I played it. It was nice.
I always love that kind of like hyper specific exclusive content.
Yeah. I was hoping that like, because they shot like a little mini, like, let's call it 7-minute probably documentary with interviews with the developers. And I was hoping that was uploaded to YouTube, but if it's on there, I couldn't find it. So I could like, double check my notes on it. But yeah, I had a great time, and I hope that we can get more of these, because I really believe in the Dutch games industry. Like it's pretty small, but it's bigger than people think, Like I've said this before, I think on this very podcast, but there is more to our Dutch games industry than just Guerrilla Games and Flambeer. And
there are dozens of us. Dozens.
Yeah. Like another big one that people may have heard of is Rage Squid. Makers of Action Hank, and the one that they're actually famous for, Descenders.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a downhill like mountain biking or just downhill extreme sports game with like sort of roguelike-ish elements in that like the downhill runs are randomized, if memory serves. I have to admit, I haven't played it, but I read a news article about it a couple of weeks ago about how it sold like actual millions of copies, like, which is very impressive for such a small team. And I love to see it. And I hope that the Dutch games industry can continue growing, even without the great environment that was Dutch Game Garden. God damn it, our government, for forcing it to or for causing it to shut down. I'm still mad about it. But yeah, if you're in town, I suppose, go see this exhibit. It's very interesting. And it's in Dutch and English.
We love a good bilingual exhibit around here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to go from the seminal hit by the Rasmus in 2003, In the Shadows, to some monkey bidness. Scott, I believe you have been playing Donkey Kong Bonanza, a game that is very popular right now because it's very good.
I don't know. I think it's maybe a bit of a sleeper hit. Sort of an indie title.
It'll get like, honorable mention.
Yeah, those scrappy unknown developers at Nintendo really showing off their chops that they didn't have previously.
Let's see if it gets mentioned by Jeff Keighley at the Game Awards this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they really deserve that glow up.
Yeah. No, this is both of you have been saying, you've been playing get some couple games during this since the last episode. I was playing Cyberpunk, got into Phantom Liberty, but the main game that I have been playing is the new experience, Donkey Kong Bonanza. Oh boy. I do like me a 3D Mario platformer.
Mm-hmm.
This is just, you get some of these games and you just cannot, I cannot count the number of nights I've gone like 1 o'clock and I'm still playing this. Like I told myself, Scott, go to bed. You have work in the morning.
Just like one more level. And then 2 hours later, you're like, one more level.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing about this. It's just, I'm just gonna get one more banana, one more fossil bit because it's a collectathon.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, harkening the days of Donkey Kong 64, Banjo-Kazooie. I mean, this is effectively a spiritual successor to Super Mario Odyssey. But it's just, I mean, even the first No, it's so good. Like when you first start up the game, little bit of a cutscene, but you're right into it. You're playing as Donkey Kong, just smashing up everything. I would have thought that smashing up everything would sort of get old. That is not the case. It helps that Donkey Kong is just so agile and able to get around everywhere.
Yeah.
You're able to climb, I would say, most walls. There'll be specific ones that you can't do, like there'll be thorns or they're too slippery.
Or sand.
For the most part, you can't. Yep. But the most part, you can climb everything. You can roll around, jump around everywhere. And it's sort of it really is that the destruction of this game sort of complements it. I do find it's sort of taking more esque of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, where you sort of there is a sort of a way they say envision you would go to collect a sort of banana or a fossil bit, but you can just go around anywhere and end up finding because you can dig around and get you can get treasure chests.
Mm-hmm.
And these treasure chests will have maps, specific bananas and bits, and you can quite often be like, oh, there's this fossil bit. Oh, it's actually beneath me. I'll just hammer down.
I had a great example of this. I was playing it like this morning, and I was in sublevel 900 for those who are keeping track, the Tempest level, and you have like a sonar move where you like smash the ground and it sends out a little pulse and you can see like items in your relatively immediate vicinity, which you can upgrade to be further. And I was just like poking around, just seeing what I could find. And I saw a banana sort of like down and to the left. And so I smashed through the ground, sort of like had to go around like a thing. And then when you get the banana, it always has a little like fun little nickname for its circumstances. And it was called like Guided Through the Tunnels or something. And I was like, didn't do any of that. So I did the tunnel section backwards to see how I was quote unquote supposed to get there.
I did find I've found a couple of times I've sort of overdone an action to try and get to a certain item. Like I've sort of had to sort of quickly jump up and go up a wall and sort of trying to quickly go through to get one, and then sort of you get in, it's like, oh, there's an actual sort of not a door, but it's sort of like a wall that you can destruct. And it's like, oh, that's how I was supposed to get it. I didn't have to go all this faffing about, stressing myself.
Turns out there's also just a barrel that will launch you there.
But the nice thing is that, like, doing that extra work can also be rewarding in and of itself, right? Because you can get more treasure chests, you can get more gold, you can get, like, consumable in air quotes items like the balloons, the apple juice, and the melon juice. So it's not like you're wasting your time at the very least, which is a nice thing about how they've incorporated the smashing.
Yeah. Oh, it's just so. I've never actually played Red Faction.
I was gonna bring up Red Faction as my point of reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First thing I thought of when I saw the game in action. I'm sure that for most people nowadays it would be Minecraft instead, but as soon as I saw, like, oh, we have destructible terrain, we Red Faction now, boys.
Call this game Red Faction Gorilla.
Exactly.
That's got to be the episode title now.
Oh, yeah. But actually, the game that actually made me think about when destruction was going on, No Man's Sky.
Ooh, also a good one, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because that's, because it's sort of just going destruction, creating holes, trying to get materials. And this game, every sort of block that you get, you get sort of different, they are different properties. So you'll get ice blocks that you can go through. that will cool down lava. You'll get these ones that are actually
There's like a
a
chromatic ore,
rainbow cloud.
which when you grab it, it makes you fly up. It's great.
Yep, exactly. What else is there? You get ones that acts like a bomb. Just really weird ones. It does variety of it. And so when you're actually collecting like sort of bananas and fossils, the bananas, they'll either be sort of their own just around the place, or they'll actually be their own sort of like mini dungeons, essentially. So you'll get ones where you sort of have to defeat a certain amount of enemies. And so you got to use your certain abilities. Other ones are sort of like, okay, here's 3, go through this sort of gauntlet. Here's 3 bananas that you can get.
Those are my favorite parts of the game, honestly. Like the little mini dungeons with 3. Oh, there's some really clever ones in there.
Yeah. I do like the ones that go back to Donkey Kong Country.
Oh yeah, the 2D ones. Oh, they're so cool.
Very, very, very important question.
Yeah.
Are there any minecart sections?
Yes.
Are they the filter where most people stop playing? Because that's how it goes in Donkey Kong Country.
No, I've thoroughly enjoyed the minecart stuff so far.
By God, they've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something you can easily... Because it's not something you can jump in those, but you don't lose your balance. Like you can't sort of fail the minecart itself. It's more of a case you go to a place and you sort of collecting sort of like bombs to shoot at something.
Yeah.
So,
Gotcha. Yeah.
They're fun. And then with this game, obviously this you have a companion, young Pauline. I don't know where I've still haven't yet finished the game. I'm close to it. I don't know where this fits in the Donkey Kong, the whole Mario timeline. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to end up being that Nintendo just says, this is just a video game, just enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Although, so we're not going to get any answers.
But what about the lore?
Point out one thing that Rosalie pointed out, which is that we've seen Donkey Kong we've seen in previous games that he enjoys music. In like older Donkey Kong games, he's like listening to a radio. There's a straight up Donkey Kong rhythm game. Yeah. And so it is Rosalie's headcanon that I also support, that this game is them like establishing where Donkey Kong's love of music comes from.
Okay.
Even though like the actual timeline doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yoka, it needs to make sense. We have to make it make sense.
If you don't behave yourselves, we're going to get into the situation of 3 separate timelines in Zelda situation. With Pauline. She can, her thing is that she can sing. So you can use her singing things to sort of open up certain like gauntlets for bananas, and you also get what's called the Bananza transformations. So the first one is a sort of I would say a caked out bigger Kong.
Yeah.
Accurate.
Before you get any further into this, I don't have the last one yet, so please don't tell me what it is.
No. I'm not spoiling it for anyone. I'm also going to mention the ones that I think were in the direct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The direct had the first 3.
Yes. So you've got the caked out Kong, as I was calling him. Then you've got the zebra transformation, who can run fast, and you've got the ostrich one, who can sort of float by. So
and drop egg bombs.
Yes, the designs of these, they look like something out of DreamWorks, I would say.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to make a cartoon zebra, it's hard to avoid the DreamWorks comparison just because of the Madagascar movies.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Also,
but this one sort of like,
It's very strange to me that they picked a bird, and they picked ostrich specifically, but not for speed, even though ostrich racing is a real thing. No, it's like, let's use this famously flightless bird for the floating and hovering mechanic.
It glides, it doesn't fly.
And I mean, the ostrich was in the original Donkey Kong Country.
True.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all the abilities mentioned. There are more, but that's all I mentioned. But no, you sort of earn sort of like Bananza currency to activate those abilities. Easy enough to sort of go through the fly. You'll end up, I'll just say during later on in the game, you'll end up having to switch between them. I will say, I'm not sure if you mentioned this in the Unfocused podcast, Helga, but you were saying, I think in Blue Sky, the bosses tended to be a bit on the easier side.
Yeah, that I have played a little more since I have played a lot more since I said that on Blue Sky, but I am still of that opinion. Like, I'm currently dealing with the boss in area 900, in like sub-level 900. I guess 902 by now, but like, so far nothing has really challenged me. I have heard that at least the final boss requires mastery of all of your Bananza power forms, but I haven't gotten there yet.
No, never have I. But yeah, but no, it's just, as I said, this is this absolutely looks fantastic. It is. I've actually been trying to play this more on the actual TV because I've got a 4K TV.
Yeah.
It looks really good. It looks really good on the handheld. Actually, I will mention I did go back to Mario Odyssey because I remember there was a thing with Mario Odyssey when you're playing in handheld where, like, when nothing's going on, like if you're not moving anything, it looks good. But as soon as you move the camera or start moving the character, it's sort of the horizontal resolution is halved, and so some scenes it does get a bit chunky.
Oh,
I will say in Mario Odyssey, yeah. But that's why I wanted to say here because Bananza, like obviously a spiritual successor to Odyssey, does not have that. It looks incredible on the handheld.
It really does.
Yeah. It's just like the character animations, the models, the destruction. Now, going on later in the game, I did notice frame rate dips, but I'm noticing frame rate dips because I'm doing a lot of destruction.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this is the people saying, it slows down. Yeah, it will, but it really slows down when you're doing aggressive destruction. Once you stop the destruction, it goes fine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If a lot of things are exploding at the same time, you'll get a little bit of a dip, but in general gameplay, it's a smooth 60 FPS.
Yeah. This is not like a Link's Awakening Echoes of Wisdom situation where just up and down. No, it's
Mario and Luigi Brothership.
Or yeah, exactly. But no. Apparently this was supposed to be originally a Switch 1 game.
Yeah. And I am scared of how it would have looked on Switch 1. Like,
yeah, I'm glad that version never materialized because genuinely, like, a game this good looking with this kind of like destructible terrain and everything, I think if you try to run this on a Switch 1, all that's going to happen is you're going to melt your Switch 1.
Here's the thing that's interesting, right? Like, it does have game share functionality to Switch 1s. So and I haven't tested it out yet. I suppose I could. I'd have both. Yeah. But like the game share only is functional for like player 2 being Pauline functionally, like just making blocks appear in the world that you can throw at things. And I guess that's like mostly just mechanically, I think that would just be like you're screen sharing it to the other Switch. and then player 2 presses the button to make the blocks show up in the game, and that's basically their interaction.
Yeah, I haven't tested it with Bananza yet. I did try it with 3D World, the game share, and you can get a situation where you can actually control your your character on the Switch 1, but it's actually you're actually controlling it on the Switch 2. It's crazy. So it's apparently you can do it like online. So if you have someone who owns a Switch 2 but doesn't have the game, you can game share and effectively stream your video to them.
Yeah.
But you need a Switch 2 for that.
Game share is so cool.
I think Switch 1 you can. Yeah, it's a cool concept. Yeah, it's just like if you got another family member, you can just, rather than huddling over to the one screen, you can offset it to multiple ones, provided it's got to be like sort of the same screen, effectively. So, but it's such a cool idea. But yeah, I was playing it just before this. I had to go. I went on this podcast. Yeah, I am near the final bits of the game, so hopefully I should have this done before the next episode. But yeah, that is what I have been playing. Yes, New Donk, very good. I'm gonna make a call here. Mario Kart World, good game, great game. Wouldn't really say it's a system, something to get the system for. I'm going to say Bananza is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask this question to both of you, and I can't remember if I asked about this on stream or on the Unfocused podcast. So if you've heard it before, I apologize. So do you think that like Pauline's relationship that she gets through this game is why New Donk City is called New Donk City?
See, this is why it's important to dig into the lore. I'm going to say, until evidence appears to the contrary, yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Nice. Glad to hear it. We're all on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
That page being very donk-shaped.
DONK, people.
Yes.
Yes.
Going from donks to punks, I've also been playing some Frostpunk lately, and that's actually been like even more of my time than the Shrouded Isle. Have either of you played it?
I have not.
Remind me, it's the like very icy, like real-time strategy / city management game where you're trying to survive like big winter.
Very good, yes. You hit it pretty much right on the head. Yeah, it's a survival strategy game, which is a very old subgenre, but not a very frequent one, if that makes sense. Like, it goes all the way back to things like Outpost and even arguably Homeworld. The other game that sort of fits into this in more recent times would be like Surviving Mars. That's by Himamon, the people who make the Tropico games. But yeah, this is a survival strategy city management sim where the idea is that there is a great global freeze and you are founding like a ramshackle approximation of a society around a giant coal-powered steam engine, essentially. And it is the reason you are doing that is because it is heat, and heat is literally the most important thing in the world right now because the temperatures in this game drop hard. We'll get to that. In fact, we can start right now. Apologies to our listeners who count in Fahrenheit. I'm going to be using Celsius here. The game starts at minus 20 degrees Celsius as a default.
Yikes.
Which is, yeah, that's pretty harsh. And it's only going to get worse from there. But yeah, you found this ramshackle little civilization, very gently trying to expand. Like, and you start off with quite literally nothing, as in like it's day one. We've arrived because we've come over here from London. We don't even have tents. We don't even have shelter. We need to get going like now in order to get anything up and running. So the death toll is usually like, you know, by the time you've had a couple runs and know how to play the game, it's not going to be too bad. But your first time around, yeah, death toll is going to be quite high. And what I like about this game is it forces you to strategize. It forces you to think about what do you prioritize, and then it establishes that as a gameplay concern, and then it introduces ethics into it. Because one of the first questions that's going to come up is, do we want to do child labor? Because, like, you start with 80 people, 30 of them are children. Do we want them, like, working, or do we just try to shelter them? Because, not gonna lie, it makes a big difference. And then later on, similar questions come up of, like, do we do triage with the people who are sick? Do we do, like, do we, found a religion to try and suppress the social unrest that's going on? Because the two main social stats to keep track of are unrest and hope. Those are two separate bars, and you want your unrest as low as possible, obviously, and you want your hope as high as possible, obviously. It is not that hard to get one of those two bars moving in the direction you want. Getting both to behave is actually a lot of work. And in addition to those social metrics, you are also trying to balance actual resources like coal, which is used to power your like main engine, but also wood and steel that are used for construction, and food that you need in order to actually keep people fed. It's a very interesting resource management sim, and like I said, it proposes real ethical dilemmas. A thing I really, really appreciate is it completely decouples survival from success. You can absolutely survive in this game and still come out feeling like you failed, and you can absolutely die in this game and feel like you succeeded. For instance, because the idea is essentially like there's one big storm coming on the exact day will vary depending on the scenario that you play, but usually it's like day 40, and it will incrementally get colder up to that point. Say, like I mentioned, the game starts at minus 20 degrees Celsius. Right before the storm hits, it's already down to like minus 70, which is... You could go to Antarctica right now in December and it would not be that cold. And then the actual storm hits and it plummets hard to like minus 120.
Jeez.
It gets... Yeah, it gets absolutely insane towards the end. But if you survive that storm, then that is the end of that particular scenario. But like I said, the game decouples your survival from whether or not you succeeded. Because one of the first times I actually survived that storm, I did not feel very good about myself, because I had essentially founded a religious dictatorship in order to keep my unrest low enough. I had to, like you do, you know, it's look, it's something to do on a Sunday, all right? And I felt really bad about it. And there's also like a scenario where you play as the working class blue collar people from London, and then there's a wave of refugees who come in, led by literal actual aristocrats who used to exploit you. And there is a question of, how do you treat those people? How do you, like, are you going to inflict the same kind of punishment onto them that they did onto you? And you can absolutely go too far on that. Like, there will be hangings in the street if you don't actually have some kind of order going on. But at the same time, death does not mean failure, or at least it doesn't have to mean it. Like in the main primary scenario, A New Home, death is roughly a failure state. But then there is another scenario where you're in charge of a couple of seed vaults, like they have up in Scandinavia, that are full of seeds for like all the wildlife, not wildlife, all the plant life in the Northern Hemisphere. And if you could just keep the temperature in those high enough, then you can eventually sort of ensure the, in like the enduring survival of the species. And it doesn't seem that hard. It seems doable. You don't have a lot of people to work with, but it's manageable. And then you find out, oh, by the way, one of our scouts came back. There's a town. There's an entire town called New Manchester. Like, that's pretty far away, but not impossible to get to. And there's like 800 people there. Do we try to save them? Do we try to take the limited resources we have and split them and hope that we can both keep the seeds going and keep New Manchester going? And I have failed that scenario in the sense of everybody in my outpost died, and the seed vault actually did not survive. But we saved New Manchester, and the game does not like treat that as a sad wah 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 try again failure. No, the game is like that was a really noble sacrifice you made, and the people of New Manchester will remember you for it. I like how it, like, for a game this concerned about ethics, I like that it takes a very non-gamified approach to, like, what is failure and what is success. It actually sort of thinks about the implications and the outcome of your actions.
There's no Infamous style, you did the good guy thing or the bad guy thing.
No, there's a lot of shades of in between, and it's, to the best of my knowledge, impossible to have like a perfect run where absolutely nothing goes wrong. Like, I don't, it is possible to have, I think, a run where nobody dies. It's hard, but it's doable. But every difficult, like, ethical question is not just left in a vacuum. So for instance, like, if you say, yes, we want to do child labor, the game does not immediately automatically judge you for that. Because then there are follow-up questions of like, okay, do the children get like a double portion of rations to make sure that, our youngest, most vulnerable members of our community at least stay healthy? Side note, there's a very fun achievement tied into that called Please, Sir, Can I Have Some More?
Of course.
A little bit of Oliver Twist in there. And the game looks sort of at your total collective approach to your civilization when it recaps everything at the end. Because, like, whether you survive or not, there is a time lapse at the end of your run showing the development and expansion of your settlement as it sort of narrates the big events going over it. And it has nice nuance to it. Like, on like something I frequently do in my runs is I will establish a fighting pit, essentially, for people to beat the frustration out of each other, which doesn't sound particularly civilized, but at most it means that like 2 people get hurt every night. Whereas you can take that degree further. You can follow down that list of decisions all the way to like public dueling is legal in order for people to get their frustrations out. And that is very much like, 1, ethically a big problem, and 2, logistically, that's a good way of losing citizens who aren't even sick. Because sometimes people just don't survive a duel.
The solution is bring back pro wrestling. Because it's simulated violence where people might get hurt if something goes wrong, but you can still get your aggression out in the crowd.
I know, it sounds like that might get a pretty frosty reception.
Boo! Boo!
Ooh.
Why are you booing me? I'm right. But anyway, I mentioned it briefly, but I do want to be clear. There's multiple scenarios, like even more if you get the DLC for it and everything. But I believe the baseline nowadays for the game is there is a new home, the main scenario, and then there are 4 alternate scenarios, which include things like the refugees coming in and the seed vaults, and then a couple others. And I would say that all of them are actually really good and present different kinds of, like, both different kinds of narrative experiences and different kinds of mechanical challenges. Because the seed vault one, you start with way fewer people, and so you're relying a lot more on automatons that you have to develop. You know, big old steampunk powered striders that you can have in any scenario, but usually they're sort of like a luxury, whereas in the Ark scenario, they're sort of become the backbone of your economy. And it's like, okay, that sounds well balanced. And then it's like, yeah, but if you want to help New Manchester, the convoy you need to send off in that direction is one of those automatons. And then the next one is 2 automatons, and then 4 automatons. And those represent a really big investment in your economy that you are now giving up. Not just in terms of how much it takes to build, but also, like, those automatons were doing work. You are actively depleting your own workforce if you do that. So they're all structured really interestingly, very differently. The refugee one is also actually, you might think, oh, that's a giant influx of, like, a workforce. Yeah, it's way too big an influx. You will not have nearly enough jobs for them. You cannot have enough jobs for them. That's what makes it an actual difficult decision, because you can turn away the refugees who come in. And depending on how well you've been playing, you might have to, because we're talking like hundreds of mouths you need to feed. And that's not always viable. It also means more houses you need to build, and there's only so much room, because the best houses are the closest to the giant engine, because that's the heat source. If you need more houses, they're going to be built further away, so they're literally going to be colder. Which means more people get sick, which means you need more medical facilities, etc., etc. Like, it's all very thoughtfully interwoven a lot of the time, and I really like it. Much like the Shrouded Isle, I wouldn't say that this is a happy game with a jolly tone.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. You picked some grim games to talk about this episode.
Like, Shrouded Isle is grim. Frostpunk is more dire. Not quality-wise, but just in terms of, like, the mood of it. Like, it's not depressing exactly. It's just a very literal life or death kind of situation. But when things are good, people are hopeful. Very literally, you can fill up the bar and it'll say so. But no 2 runs of that game are going to play out the exact same way as well, because there's a giant tech tree with a bunch of different texts to research, and you literally cannot possibly research all of them in a single run. So you have to choose, like, what do you prioritize? What works out? What does not? I would share my favorite strategies here, but I feel like it's honestly, like, this is a game where failure is very instructive, actually. Because, like, the first couple times I played this game, I died, obviously. Did not really understand what I was doing yet. I was being very inefficient. I died. But I learned a lot from it. I could look back at those runs and be like, this was not exactly, like, this was not me being malicious. This was not me actively trying to get everybody killed. I just had, like, an idea, and it was a well-intentioned idea. I just completely missed, like, all of the consequences and side effects besides the one that I had in my mind until it was way too late. Because there are, I don't want to say, like, compounding errors, but it becomes more difficult to correct for things over time. Because if you're like, oh, I overinvested in, say, steel. Like, I set up way too much effort setting up mine and a steelworks. I should break some of that infrastructure down and spend it on something else. You can, and you'll get back most of the resources you put into that. But for one, not all the resources. And for two, people who use, like, if you want to break down the infrastructure you have, that takes people, that takes labor, and that's labor that can't be spent actually keeping your economy going. So if you want to do it without interfering with your economy, you have to do it outside of working hours, which is a great way of getting people sick, because outside of working hours means at night when it's cold enough that, like, oil would freeze. So overcommitment is very possible, and it is possible to recover from it a little bit. Like, it's not a... Like, I brought up Surviving Mars earlier, and Surviving Mars is actually much harsher in that regard. Like, you can overcommit in Surviving Mars and not realize that you're doing it. And you can absolutely create an economy there where one thing breaks, and it turns out you've made everything so interconnected that it takes hours to fix that thing, because the thing that broke is the resource that you need in order to initiate the repair, and you are just kind of left realizing, wow, I actually sort of lost this game 3 hours ago,
Ooh.
and I just didn't notice until now. Frostpunk is not like that, thankfully. Like, yes, you can overcommit, but it's rare, like, in terms of, like, time, quote-unquote, wasted, it's rarely more than, like, 10 or 15 minutes before that consequence bites you in the ass.
How long does a run of Frostpunk typically go?
I would say generally about... for me, it's usually about 2 hours, but that's because I normally play at, one-time speed, and there'll be times when I pause to think of, like, which law do I want to enact, which technology do I want to research, and, like, I pause the game when I'm making those choices so that I can not feel pressured about it. But, if you are quick on your feet and you just, for one thing, you can also just play at multiple speeds, like 1-time speed, 2-time speed, 4-time speed. If you have it on 4-time speed, you can get through an entire, like, session in half an hour if you dare. I would not recommend playing the entirety of that session in half an hour, because it's a great way of being inefficient for a while.
Yeah, only do it once you're already really good at the game.
Yeah, because, things can happen, like a local resource can run out. Like, you'll have frozen trees that you can chop down for wood, but a sawmill can only reach wood so far away, and eventually the wood in that area is exhausted. Doesn't mean you don't have wood anymore, it just means you need to build a new sawmill closer to the remaining trees. But if you miss that your sawmill ran out, if you're playing at 1-time speed, that's not a long stretch of time where, you're working with limited wood. If you're playing on 4x speed and you don't notice for a minute or two, you might suddenly find yourself being like, wait, I don't have wood anymore, because I'm using it in my charcoal, like, kilns to make coal to power the engine. How am I going to get the wood now to build a new sawmill to get more wood? Like, those are very avoidable kind of scenarios. If you're playing at 1x speed, it gets harder not to fall into those traps at 4x speed. But yeah, in general, I think the writing is very thoughtful. The way it's integrated into the gameplay is very good. The aesthetics are pretty strong. Like, not as bold and visually striking as something like the Shrouded Isle, but there is a very literal steampunk kind of vibe to everything. And the frost makes it feel immediately distinctive as well. There's a very interesting Mockney kind of flavor to it, because, like, the game is meant to be set in the UK, and it has a lot of, like, British flourishes, except the developers are from Poland, so it's a little bit of an outside perspective on it. But you can't say it isn't a distinct flavor, and I do actually sincerely like it.
And for those of you who don't know what it means, what does Mockney mean?
It's portmanteau of the word to mock and cockney, as in, like, London slang. So we are talking essentially, fake British. It's like I recently got introduced to the term maple face for when this happens with Canadians, like what we were doing earlier. Oh yeah, bud, for sure. That's me doing maple face. But yeah. So the aesthetics are pretty strong. The soundtrack is also it's again not happy. Happy is not the right phrase for it, but it does a very good job of setting the mood, and it like slowly ramps up in terms of how tense it is the closer you get to the actual storm. And it's very satisfying to get it right. It can be very satisfying to get it wrong, so long as you succeed in what you in at least one of the things you intended to do. It can even just be, like I said, instructive when you outright completely mess it up. And if you played this game like once or twice and both times you died, and then you were like, this game is hard, I don't feel like playing it anymore, I completely understand that. I would very sincerely recommend going back and give it another try, because I'm not saying, failure is part of the intended experience, but I do think that, like, the game does try very hard to teach you, and it can be very rewarding once you're actually picking up what it's laying down. So, yeah. I haven't played the sequel yet. My understanding is there is a not remaster, more like a top-down remake of Frostpunk, currently in development. Frostpunk 1886, I think it's called. It's not scheduled to come out until like 2027. They're really taking their time with that one. But yeah, keep an eye out on that. The sequel, I haven't played it. I think at time of recording, that's scheduled to be released on console later this month. It's already out on PC. But at least when it comes to the original game, I can absolutely vouch for it. It is very distinctive, it's very satisfying, and if you are into this weird niche little subgenre of survival strategy, I would definitely say it's among the most highly recommended stuff out there. So, yeah, absolutely big fan.
Let's move to something a little happier. I played Baldur's Gate 3. In fact, I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, in fact. As you might remember, it came out sort of near the end of 2023, and I finished it a couple of weeks ago. I was playing it co-op with a friend, which is one of the reasons it took me so long, but I also just kind of wanted to savor it, because Baldur's Gate 3 is genuinely one of the best games I have ever played in my life. Solid entry into my top 10 of all time. And I'm not really the kind of person who finishes a lot of big long RPGs like this, but I was so engrossed the whole way through. And that shows that this game is something really special. I know we've talked about it on the show before, twice, in fact. Once, when it just came out and I played it on Steam Deck, and another one was just a quick check-in to be like, hey, it's way better with mouse and keyboard controls. But now I have actually finished it, and I can talk about it at length and in depth, and I'll try to avoid narrative spoilers. But I do have to give you sort of the basic gist. I'm going to use a lot of proper nouns. If you're not into Dungeons and Dragons at all, you might not recognize a lot of them, but if anything comes up, I will try to explain it. You wake up on a Mind Flayer ship. Mind Flayers are weird octopus head people who literally eat brains. You fight your way out of the ship. Then the character you created and a slowly growing group of adventurers investigate the growing Mind Flayer threat to the Forgotten Realms, which is the location you're in. You'll travel to a lot of places. You'll find a couple of iconic locations, like the Underdark, which is the sort of underground area with a lot of fungus and not nocturnal creatures, but creatures that can see in the dark. And of course, the titular city of Baldur's Gate. You'll find a lot of people, a lot of characters, all of them like really colorful and memorable and interesting, and most of them have stuff for you to do. Wow, as I finished saying that, I realized this just sounds like a marketing spiel. Hashtag not sponsored. I just think everybody should play this game. The coolest thing about Baldur's Gate 3 is how everything feels connected. There's like side quests you can do very early in the game that have ramifications for like 80 hours later. So it's important to like talk to as many people as you can, try to explore as much as you can. Like the first time when I just bought the game and I started playing it, and I wasn't really doing a lot of that because I just didn't really know where to look, basically. Like I hadn't really figured out how this game wants you to explore yet. And so I went into like an area way under leveled, and I was like, oh, this game's really hard. And then when I started playing it in that co-op playthrough with one of my friends, I realized just how much stuff I'd missed. And so it's really good to go through every area with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah. Question that I assume people who haven't played it are gonna have. Had you played Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 prior to this, and would you say that it is necessary to play those?
I did not. And I don't think it is. There are some characters and some events that are references to Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. And I will admit, like, the friend I played it with, to the best of my knowledge, has not played them either, but he did point them out to me. Honestly, I don't think you don't need to have played Dungeons and Dragons either. Like, if you are deep in Dungeons and Dragons, there's a lot of things you'll recognize as like, ooh, this is a reference to Tomb of Annihilation, one of the like campaigns you can buy for 5th edition. Or, ooh, I remember people talking about this in like older editions and stuff. And that's like, some extra garnish of flavor. But I think the game does do a decent enough job of explaining everything. And not only explaining everything, but explaining everything in an in-universe way, despite the fact that there is a narrator, that I don't think it's necessary to have played Baldur's Gate 1, Baldur's Gate 2, or D&D in general. I will say,
nice.
Having played D&D does help in just like learning how the mechanics of the game work, because it's close to D&D 5th edition. They made some changes to make it, a video game, but like most of the spells will work the way you're used to them. Like Fireball works the same way. It's 8d6 fire damage, Magic Missile is the exact same amount of damage. It's it never misses. There's reactions for shield, that for the shield spell that stop Magic Missile, things that you would expect if you've played D&D. I want to point out some key differences here for that kind of tripped me up occasionally. Number one, there is no dodge action or ready action. These are actions you can take in the tabletop game that have benefits. They do not exist in Baldur's Gate 3. You can throw potions at your allies to give them the effects of those potions at range. That's very cool. I like that a lot. Just huck a healing potion at somebody who's like down and they'll get healed. Big fan.
Because that's what normally happens when I throw bottles at people. They feel better afterwards.
Yeah. Speaking of potions, using potions is a bonus action instead of an action like it is in the tabletop game. Will say that is a very common house rule in a lot of 5th edition games, and this is something that was changed for the 2024 update, or 5.5 as it is frequently colloquially known. There's a number of those in this game that like either were common house rules or they kind of took from Baldur's Gate 3 when they were designing those rules. It's great. Spell scrolls are a lot better in this game. They're a lot easier to find because you can just buy them. Similarly with magic items. And B, literally anyone can use any spell scroll. Because in the tabletop game, you have to have the possibility of learning that spell. Like it has to be on your class's spell list to be able to use it. That's not the thing. That's not a thing in this game. You only have
the
two.
Scroll does the work for you.
Yeah, exactly. You only have 2 short rests per long rest. In the tabletop game, you have a theoretical infinite number of, infinite. I mean, like they have to be at least an hour long, and there's only so many hours in the day. But you're not limited to 2, is the point. And short rests, the distinction for those of you who don't know, they give you back a little bit of health, and some class abilities will come back. Not all of them, but some. But long rests, literally, you're back to full health. All of your abilities have refreshed. You're all good. Mm-hmm. You will need camp supplies for long rests. You'll find like food items across the world, and there'll be anything from just a big watermelon to many different types of booze. You can also find just a camp supply pack that'll be a full 40 points worth, which is not a thing in the tabletop game, but it's a little more video gamey, and I kind of like it.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is... here's a nice one. The Berserker subclass of the Barbarian is not completely embarrassing to play. Because exhaustion is also not really a rule that exists in this game. And in the tabletop game, you get levels of exhaustion that makes your character worse when you use your main class ability, Rage.
Well, it'll make you worse after it wears off.
Yeah. And it's just quite easy for it to wear off if you're not careful. But exhaustion, not a thing in this game. All Gucci.
I was going to ask, how would you say the multiplayer plays into it? Like, would you recommend people play this single player or multiplayer if assuming they have the choice?
It's hard to say because you'll get some because the experience will be meaningfully different. When you play it in co-op, both players or all players, I think you can even play it with more than 2 people. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure about that. Will create their own characters, like in the character creator, pick their species, class, all that stuff. And those characters will always be in your party. So you will have fewer of the origin characters, as they're called, to be in your party. And so you get less interesting dialogue moments between the origin characters. And if you want to get the most out of all of the characters' narrative beats, you will have to switch out characters at your camp more often.
Mm-hmm. Also, I just looked it up. Co-op is 2 to 4 players.
Okay, yeah. It's a party of up to 4. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Classic D&D.
In saying keyboard and mouse, is it more so mouse controls or a combination of keyboard and mouse? I'm just wondering, hypothetically, if it were to say come to Switch 2, would it benefit from mouse controls?
Mouse controls is the big one, because having the ability to be as precise as you want with interacting with things in the overworld and moving your character is very, very useful. And when I was playing it on Steam Deck and even tried it on a controller for a bit on Xbox, because it does have cross saves, which is great, cross progression. You will accidentally, especially if you're playing like a rogue, you will accidentally sometimes just pick up things that you didn't mean to, and that's technically stealing, and now people get mad at you, you know? And having the mouse to be that specific is just really important. But keyboard, also very useful just for keyboard shortcuts and managing your inventory and your abilities and stuff. But the mouse is the main thing. One other thing about the co-op is it is very fun in a, D&D sort of way, I suppose, to strategize with your co-op partner or partners. Because you can do some pretty wild stuff in this game. D&D has some cool spells and abilities, and talking it through with someone can sometimes be really helpful in some of the trickier combat encounters, because there's a lot of combat encounters that isn't just kill them and like shoot them until they fall over. You know, there's alternative goals while you're in a fight. Excuse me. And strategizing with someone else can be very helpful in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing I keep coming back to the most in Baldur's Gate 3 is the characters. All of the characters have burrowed, the main characters at least, have burrowed their way into my brain in a way that few games have accomplished. And this is something I've made jokes about in the past, but I really want to point out that like so many of these character concepts would be massive like red flags if they sat down at a normal like D&D table. You've got really horny vampire. You've got an amnesiac named Shadowheart.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a literal soldier from hell.
Mm-hmm.
Those are sort of the main ones that would be problematic. Like Gale is very ambitious. Will's great. I love Will. He's just sort of like he does have his own demons, literally. She's technically a devil. But he's definitely the most affable and just nice. He's just nice, and I appreciate that. One of them's a religious fundamentalist in a different way than the cleric named Shadowheart. And most of these origin characters, they start off very sort of rough around the edges. Like, especially Shadowheart and Lae'zel, they're unpleasant to be around in the beginning. And seeing the way that they develop over the course of the story is so satisfying. And especially the way that everything feels so interconnected. Like all of their, like a good game of D&D, all of their backstories are important to the main plot of the game. And they have interesting perspectives on things that happen, and taking certain actions makes the ones that are in your party like or dislike you more. And that comes into like the romance system, but also just they'll talk to you differently if they don't like you, My one criticism about the gameplay in this game, I wish there was a button to undo your movement, because the pathfinding in this game is not the best. And if you misclick or do something weird with your controller, you can move somewhere that you didn't want to, and you only have so much movement in combat, and you can end up in a position you didn't intend for you to be in, and then your turn is just kind of screwed. I
assume the lack of an undo option is so that people don't try to like optimize their turn by like trying a whole bunch of different positions to see what works best.
Yeah.
But I do also get like that can be very frustrating, just to be like, oh, come on, I nudged the stick.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you can play this game very optimally by just using a lot of quick saves. Not going to front. That's what we did. It's fine. The game is designed for it. You got a lot of randomized dice rolls, and sometimes you get absolutely wrecked by just a critical failure where, you really needed to not fail that roll. And it can be
I do remember our Tomb of Annihilation campaign, Hyoka. You don't need to remind me every time.
Yeah. And I mean, you can, like, there is an interesting play style where you just like, well, things are going to happen and they might not always be good for me, but that's just the way the dice are rolled, You can play that way, totally normal, but save scumming is also fun, because there are some dice rolls in this game that are just amazing if you make them. Yeah,
Duly noted.
very, very close to the end of the game. There is a dice roll that is very useful for the final boss, where literally the only way to make it is to get a natural 20, because that's always a success. Which is, that's another thing that's different from the tabletop game, is skill checks. 1 is always a failure, 20 is always a success. In the rules as written, that's only true for attack rolls, but that's also a very common house rule.
It used to be true. Yeah, it used to be true for any kind of roll in earlier editions of the game, and then it sort of got shrunk down to just attacks. But yeah,
see, I've looked into that, and I don't think that's actually the case, because I own 3.5 first edition AD&D and second edition AD&D, and as far as I've been able to find, that was not the case in any of those either. But it's just another...
It was in third edition, not 3.5, third edition specifically. But I digress.
It is a very common house rule.
Yeah.
But yeah, the number you have to hit for that dice roll is 99, which on a 20-sided die is tricky.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have bonuses to your stat rolls, but no bonus in the world is going to be that high. But if you get a natural 20, you succeed, and it's very useful for the final boss. Just so you know. If I were to give one hint for people going into this game, obviously make whatever character you want. You have plenty of options. But charisma-based characters are very, very useful. Especially in Act 2, there are a lot of moments where a good charisma-based roll, be that persuasion, deception, or intimidation, will do some very good things for you. So, sorcerer, paladin, warlock, bard would be your charisma-based characters, as a little hot tip. And
Gotcha. Barbarian it is.
I also like the amount of post-launch support that this game has had. Earlier this year, they announced the last content update that added new subclasses for every class in the game. And I will admit, I haven't really experimented with them that much. I tried the Swarmkeeper Ranger, and that was pretty cool. But yeah, that is the last content update, and there'll still be little patches just to fix things. Not gonna lie, there's still a couple bugs lingering in this game because it's very complicated and there's a lot going on. But mostly it'll be a very seamless experience. And co-op and crossplay is also fairly easy to set up. By the end, I was playing on PC and my friend was playing on Xbox, and we were just playing it together that way. It was very cool. I cannot overstate how good this game is. I'm going to be thinking about this game for a very long time. I'm not going to replay it anytime soon. A, because I have other games I want to play, and B, because it takes up 120 gigabytes on my hard drive. But this is genuinely an all-timer, and I don't think there's going to be a game this good for a very long time. There will be very good games, but my God. I finished playing this weeks ago, and I still think about it almost every day. And there's so many different ways to play it, and different outcomes in the story, and different character moments that can go so differently. And there's a very vibrant modding scene if that's what you're into. But man, what a great experience. What just a phenomenal time. And this game's long too. It took me a year and a half to play it. And that save file was I would guess 120 hours, give or take. That was a very completionist playthrough, but man, I cannot recommend this game enough. Everybody should at least try it. If you like RPGs, you will find few that are better. You should play this game. I loved it so much, and I'm going to be thinking about it potentially for the rest of my life.
Hell yeah. And if nothing else, gentle listener, do yourself a favor and look up the blooper reels for the narrator that have been posted online.
Yeah.
They are delightful.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the voice acting also phenomenal in this game. Everybody is bringing their A game. Want to give a special shout out to Jennifer English, the voice of Shadowheart. She's great. She's also in recently released Clair Obscure Expedition 33. Big fan of her work, but everyone's great in this game. Go play it.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for another episode of the Gamepodular Unfocused podcast. I have been your host, SCHiM, as always. And as always with me have been Scott.
It's great to be me.
And Hyoka.
It's also great to be me. Go play Baldur's Gate 3. Hey, that rhymed.
Hashtag not sponsored. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, as I said, yeah. And Bananza as well. Yes, that too. And Shrouded Isle and Frostpunk. Play good games. That's our takeaway for today. Play good games.
There's so many bad games that people are playing when they could just play good games instead, you know? Yeah. Yes, this is about that game that you hate. Yes, that one.
Mm-hmm. Look, all these kids now, they're into their mind's eye. Play some good games.
Shots fired.
Oh.
But yeah, as I said at the top of the episode, be sure to check us out on Patreon, or check out our YouTube channels, check out our Twitch channel, check us out on Blue Sky. All of us are on Blue Sky as well. And we hope to see you again for our next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Gamepodular Unfocused podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps us get noticed. You can also listen and subscribe on other podcast services such as Spotify. Make sure to check our other show, N-Focus. Be sure to join our Discord server to interact with the lively Gamepodular community. Follow us on Mastodon, Blue Sky, YouTube, Twitch, and at Gamepodular.com for updates, news, and other content. Links are in the show notes. If you would like to support our shows, you can buy us a coffee or become a Gamepodular Patreon. The details for both are on our website. This episode was edited by myself, and you can follow me on Blue Sky at Scotty J Man. You can also follow Hilka on Blue Sky at Gear12Turbo or on Mastodon at Gear12Turbo at kind.social. You can follow SCHiM at SCHiM the Spider at bsky.social, albeit at your own risk. Thanks for listening.